Welcome everybody to In Isolation With. I hope you're staying healthy, I hope you're staying happy, and I hope that you're staying home. A restaurant tour by two British comedians resulted in one of the most charming films of 2010. The trip was an improvised journey not just through England's culinary scene, but through the psyches of Steve Coogan and my guest today, Rob Brydon, as they commented on life, usually while doing a spot-on Michael Caine impression. 10 years and several trips later, they follow the roadmap laid out in Homer's The Odyssey in The Trip to Greece. It would be easy to think of these movies as easy breezy travelogues with pretty scenery and sumptuous-looking food, but they're much more than that. The Trip to Greece, which comes to VOD this week, brings with it all the banter and impressions and eye-catching sights that you expect from these movies, but beneath the veneer of laughs lies a story about mortality and legacy. Don't let me make it sound too serious, though. These two are naturals, an intellectual version of the two Ronnies who riff on everything from Aristotle's Poetics to Dustin Hoffman, and who gloriously and loudly sing 1970s Bee Gee tunes while visiting the wonders of the ancient world. It's my pleasure to welcome Rob Brydon from his home in England via Zoom. Now, we started talking actually before the interview started, so we're going to start with that. It's a story of a missed connection of a film set, and then we'll start all over again, where these In Isolation Studios interviews usually start with the guest telling us where they are right now. Here's Rob Brydon. Is that a Huntsman? Is that a Huntsman's director chair I see? I love that. That's amazing.
On the back.
I love that.
It has to be said, it didn't set the world on fire, but it was such a fun experience.
Well, and I've been reading, and I mean, we'll start with the proper interview in a sec, but I've been reading that you had the chance to meet Dustin Hoffman.
Pacino.
Pacino on the set of that, and you said no.
Yeah, well, what it was, Jessica Chastain, who is lovely. I mean, wow, she's an actress, isn't she? Anyway, she was going to meet him because she's done a lot of that Salome and all that stuff.
Right.
And he was in London, and she was going to be having drinks or dinner with him. She said, "Why don't you come?" Wow, now it just so happened that on that evening, I think it was a Saturday or a Friday, there was something I was doing, like a school event or something, which I could have got out of, but I sort of thought, well, I have this funny theory, with these people, because I've had a lot of heroes in my life, I've had a lot of people, and not everybody does. You'll meet actors and creative people who don't. But I'm still a fan of people, at 55, I still get excited by certain people. And I just thought, I don't know, do I want to meet him? Yes, I do, I suppose. But my thing is, I already have a great relation with Al Pacino. It's just he's not aware of it, but but I do. So I didn't, and I imagine that maybe once Al, and it's a long way off, but once Al has shuffled off, this mortal coil, I'll probably regret it. I'll probably think, well, I could have met him. But that was my reasoning.
Well, we just watched Serpico last night. I hadn't seen it for 30 years, probably. My wife had never seen it. And man, what a movie. What a movie. He's incredible in it.
But his whole body of work is... whether I was telling my oldest son, I was asking my oldest son if he'd ever seen Carlito's Way and Donnie Brasco, which are two, wonderful films. I liked him in Warren Beatty's Dick Tracy.
Yeah.
That when he goes towards the end, when I think he's taking Madonna into that place with all the machinery where it fills it, and he goes, "Wait, I'm having a thought. I'm having a thought. Here, it's coming. It's gone." That was terrific, and that was a project, wasn't it? With Sondheim doing the music and Pacino doing the baddie. I mean, wow. I'm still on the set of The Huntsman. I'm determined. I'm determined it's going to be a hit if we can just do some reshoots. I live in Twickenham, which is outside London, like just past Richmond as you're heading west. This is my office at the top of my house, and this is where we've been for a lockdown. And
well, you have 5 kids. I think are there just 2 at home? The 11-year-old and the 8-year-old, is that right? How's that been for them in lockdown? And then I guess the natural conclusion for you.
Well, how has it been for them? I think they would like to see their friends. We're lucky; it's a big house, and we've got a lovely big garden. So, I mean, heaven knows what it's like. Keep thinking of people in flats and apartments, you know, with kids. And yet, so it's still challenging because the homeschooling in particular, for not so much for he was 12 the other day, not so much for the 12-year-old, but for our 8-year-old who's nearly 9. I was talking to a teacher friend, and he thinks they've got to get to 10 or 11 before they can work sort of on their own, you know. So George, needs a lot of supervision, and the longer this has gone on, the more I have, you know, had to start doing things like whether it's interviews for the trip or you know, I'm doing writing a few little things that have Zooming. Whereas to start with, it was just like being on holiday. And you get I've got to start doing something, if only for my own sanity. So it's not without its challenges, but I wouldn't dream of moaning. We're very fortunate, and you know, I like being at home, so it suits me.
Let's talk about the film. You and Steve Coogan have played characters that I think touch on reality before. How do you decide how much is fiction and how much of yourselves to reveal in these films?
Well, I don't think it's a conscious decision. I mean, well, other than at the very beginning of this, we did say to Michael, well, I'm not referencing my real life, and also I think within the trip, I have children of whatever age they are. They were quite young at the beginning, and the inference is that this is my one and only marriage. Well, in reality, of course, this is my second marriage, and I have 5 children, older, grown-up children, in their 20s. So I wanted that distance, and so did Steve. But then beyond that, of course, we reference our own work. I mean, particularly Steve, with the references to Partridge and Philomena and Stan and Ollie and stuff. We don't reference mine as much. Steve will make derogatory comments about panel shows and things. So you just select what works for the conflict, you know. I don't think we've ever mentioned in the trip Gavin and Stacey, which is a show over here that's huge that I'm in. It sort of doesn't fit with that sort of narrative, you know. So we just sort of cherry pick, and I suppose in a way we have our cake and eat it, you know.
I suppose that sometimes, though, if people don't really understand that, it must bleed out into real life. I've read that after the trip to Italy and your affair in that film, that people were coming up to your wife and saying, "Oh my God."
Now, first of all, that word affair. Now, affair to me suggests several encounters.
Okay, all right.
As I was saying to my wife, this a moment of madness. Yeah, that was true. It was very true that a teacher, when Claire was the boy off, and it had been on the BBC the night before, literally said to this must be a very difficult time for you, which kind of is mind-boggling, because you saw me getting out of the next morning. I mean, yeah, it's very curious. An interesting observation on that whole thing is that I might be a little more sensitive to how we're portrayed, which is odd given, because Steve rarely appears in public out of character. Whereas over here, I've had the Rob Brydon show. I host Would I Lie to You as myself, and so and I go on tour as myself, and so there is a, oh God, I don't want to use the word brand, but there is a, there is a me,
a familiarity.
So yes, but whereas Steve sort of has the luxury of, I know, joys sort of tantalizing people, because I often get, oh, I really like that. What's he like? So I think sometimes there have been few things I think Michael's wanted me to do, and you'll want an example, and I can't really think of one, but there certainly have been times where I've said, no, come on, I don't want to, I can't what they are, but the thing in Italy though, what was very about playing that setup was that I just never get to do it normally. I don't play those sort of roles.
Right.
So almost like a sort of act workshop opportunity, it was very appealing. And he said, oh, and then what's going to happen is you meet this girl and oh, okay. I can't remember if I was hesitant. I don't recall that, but I do recall thinking, oh, great, that just because it's different,
How do you decide on the themes? In this, when you are retracing the steps of Homer in Homer's Odyssey, but you've followed romantic poets before. How are the themes assigned to each of the films?
That's entirely Michael Winterbottom.
Right.
That is nothing to do with Steve and I, not even in the slightest. Michael will give us a ring and say, got an idea for another one, let's have lunch. So we'll meet with Michael and with Melissa and Josh Hyams and Steve and myself. And we'll have heard before then where the country is. And we go, oh, okay, we're going there. And then he'll have prepared a document, sort of roadmap. So in this one, without giving it away, something happens right at the end of this, which it sort of bit to, and so we'll know. So that's all him. So entirely him. I always say that Michael sort of draws it and we color it.
Right.
All the improvisations, obviously the comic riff, that's all us entirely. But the construction of it and anything plot, and often some of our more philosophical observations are very much Michael.
Oh, wow. I found this movie bittersweet watching it now, because you're eating in restaurants, you are hugging people, you are touching your face, I'm sure. It's funny how quickly, yeah, there you are doing it again, flaunting the rules. It's funny how quickly we have adopted to something else. There is now, and there is sort of the before now. And I found this, in a way, kind of bittersweet watching it. Are you feeling that sense at all when you see something on television that feels like it was from before time?
Yeah, you don't even have to. It doesn't even have to be. Even in your own, if you're looking at photos in your phone and you see a group of you together posing for a photo, that seems alien. I agree with your observation. It's remarkable how quickly we've accepted this. I find that incredible. Everybody is. I went for a walk with one of my older girls. So both of them, because we're only allowed one at a time at the moment here, in the big park near us today, and there were quite a few people, but they were all keeping their distance. And it is interesting how it says a lot about humans, that we can adapt and we can change, just accept it. And sometimes I find myself go, hang on a minute, there is a global pandemic, kind of bogeyman thing that's always been there, a little like nuclear war or something, you think, well, probably won't happen. You know, that is, probably won't happen. But here it is.
You travel a lot for work, I would imagine, certainly in the context of these films. When all this is said and done, do you think that you'll feel differently about getting on an airplane? Do you think that you will be one of those people that won't sit in a middle seat and have to wear a mask everywhere you go on the plane?
Well, I don't know how effective, whichever seat you're in, unless you're sitting on the wing, I think you're pretty vulnerable. Yeah, I'll certainly. I'm in no rush to get on an airplane, and I don't know how I'll feel. We won't be flying this summer. If we do go anywhere, we'll drive. You can drive to France because of the Channel Tunnel.
This is the fourth time we've been on one of these little jaunts.
We're retracing the steps of Odysseus.
Greeks were camped here 10 years. I can do a week tops with a pillow. I won't camp without a pillow.
Are you sad to see the trip series wind down? Or is it winding down? You tell me.
Yeah, well, it certainly is for now. I mean, I've said, you know, maybe in about 10 years, I think we may want to revisit it. It was, for me, it was a sort of a battle between really liking this idea of it coming back every 2 years or 3 years, whatever it was. I quite like that. And you see us very gradually aging or coming into our prime, depending on how you want to look at it. But I very much didn't want the quality to drop, and I'm a big believer in the old showbiz saying, you know, leave them wanting more. That's just, you know, and I am a comedian, and my instinct is to do it and get off the stage and make them go, I wish he'd stayed. So in that sense, and I don't get about work stuff because I get like that about life stuff, family stuff, you know. But when I think about the experiences of the travels we've had, because it's a very similar crew every time, a lot of the same people, certainly Michael and Josh and Melissa, those are sort of magical experiences, and increasingly so now through the prism of passing time and looking back at it, regardless of it's just thinking back and how we traveled around Italy and Spain and the first one was different because it was new and I certainly didn't know what it was we were making, you know, but with the others, then we had a template. So yes, I'd be sad to see that go, but I love the fact that I think they're all good. I don't think the quality's dropped, so I'm happy to go out on a high.
I have to tell you that I was listening to some old interviews that I had done. So since the pandemic has hit, I've had time to organize things and, you know, put things in their place. And I've interviewed Michael Caine a few times, and so I found these interviews. Mostly audio interviews that I had done with him, and I'm labeling everything. I thought, I remember this one. I looked for a movie called Harry Brown. I spoke with him for a movie called Harry Brown, and I listened to it. And as I was listening to it, I could only picture your face.
Well, I'll show you a picture I've got here of. We did a thing here, I think about 2 years ago, or maybe a bit more. The big evening at the Albert Hall, where they celebrated him. Quincy Jones came and conducted the orchestra, and it started with me and Steve. So can you see that?
Oh, yeah. That's amazing.
So that's us in the dressing room beforehand. And it started with the lights went down, and then a light came up on a section of the audience, one of the boxes there. Steve and I are arriving late, going, oh, sorry, excuse me, sorry. We sit down and then we say, oh, I'm looking forward to this, aren't you? And anyway, we engineer a way to get into doing his voice. So we're going back and forward. No, he doesn't. Yes, he does. Blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, Michael has been hidden a couple of rows behind us, sitting, and he stands up. Well, the place just went wild. And he stood there, and with exquisite timing, of course, he went, I think he said, you're funny, mate. but you're out of shape.
That's amazing. Well, I asked him in this interview, I said, your director in this film tells me that A, you're the only person that everyone in England loves, and B, that makes you an icon. And he said, and I won't do the voice, but he said, well, I don't know how to be an icon. They don't send you to icon school. I just am who I am. I'm lucky. That's all I am. It's my favorite quote in an interview almost ever.
Yeah, he's very special. He has a very special place in Britain, certainly around the world. But yeah, for someone that's sort of my age, he's always been around, for as long as I can remember. Yeah, and he's done so many films and so many good films as well.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for doing this. I very much appreciate it. Pleasure to talk to you. We love the movie, and
that's great. Thank you. Thank you.
And,
well, stay well, and let's hope we all come out the other side.
Absolutely, that you can sit in your huntsman chair in your front yard.
Yeah. Really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. We'll see you again.
Bye-bye.
What would you say you're most proud of?
My 7 BAFTAs.
For me, it'd be my children.
Yeah, well, because you haven't got any BAFTAs.
Though you have got children, which is interesting.
That was the great Rob Brydon coming to us from his home in England via the Zooms. You should keep in mind that The Trip to Greece isn't a story-driven movie as much as it is a snapshot of two people at very different places in their lives brought together by friendship and, really amusingly, one-upmanship. It will make you laugh and possibly even make you shed a tear, and you can find it on VOD wherever you legally buy or rent movies. That's it for today. My thanks to Rob Brydon for his Al Pacino impression, awesome as always, and spending some time with us today. Most of all, though, my thanks goes to you. I hope you're staying healthy, I hope you're staying happy, and I hope you're staying home. I'm Richard Crouse. We'll talk to you again soon.